Okay, welcome to another episode of Imagine the Possibility. This one is actually a three-person roundtable. So I will start off with introducing the normal person people, and then our special third person or third chair. So I'm Joseph.
I'm Mcleod for this episode.
And I'm Adam.
All right.
Yes, as noticeable listeners might notice, Adam Bojoh and Adam Mcleod both have the same name. We have we are aware of the situation, and we have taken steps
Since
to prevent confusion.
and since McLeod has the much cooler last name, he will go by his last name.
Yeah, Bojoh isn't too bad. I've heard way worse.
It's just
Okay,
yours is. I mean, come on.
Like,
At
I
least
like it.
there's not another Joe or Joseph because going as Nemie would be horrible. So anyway,
yeah. Just be glad you're not Nemie. Yeah, but yeah, McLeod. I got both the Highlander and Star Fox fans going for me.
Yeah.
So
I got a whole bunch of nothing.
you got the whole. You got. I'm swimming in a sea of mediocrity.
in,
Okay.
in my lifetime, 3 people who don't know me when reading my name have said it correctly. So that's 30 years, 3 people aside from family. And
At
the
least your
people-
name's not spelt Mcleod. Okay. Well, this is Imagine Possibilities. This is the webcast where we, as gamers, do what all gamers do. We talk about why the hell hasn't a certain type of game been made yet, and then talk about like all the cool things you could possibly do to make money off of this. And I'm going to start off the episode by asking my 2 cohorts a simple question. Have you noticed a coming trend in first-person shooters where their design is very simplistic?
well, yeah, they've gone to the whole basically just kick down the door, kill the bad guys, kick down the next door, kill the bad guys.
And it's not even several doors on the same floor for different rooms. It's go to the end of the hallway, kick down the door to this one room, then there's only one other door in that room you can kick open.
Mhm.
So,
Sometimes in the settings they try and create the illusion of more of a surrounding thing, but it's still more of a, like you said, it's more of a kind of corridor tunnel,
yeah,
or
there's
more or less
often,
a funnel of
yeah,
what.
they're putting, oh yeah, funnel is probably the better word for it now, because they have like a lot of times where you can open up and you've gone down this place, opened this door, and found the one room that that doesn't have a terrorist in it.
Mhm.
Or if you're playing something like Bioshock, a splicer or whatever. So I'm going to say that I was thinking if the game design itself is simple enough, where it's essentially a corridor with some assets around there and some enemy placement, that's all stuff that has in the past for other genres been done pretty well, increasingly well, with procedural generation. So I thought for a second, if you had the programming chops of a team of creating a procedurally generated first-person shooter type of game where you can put in certain requirements for the game. Let's say it's very simple. You say you want to take the game and it's going to be placed inside of an office building, and it's going to involve terrorists, and you're going to be just using basic machine guns, and you then watch Die Hard, and then you stop playing video games. Okay, but the idea being that the game itself could see like, okay, we have this criteria, so we're going to reach into we're going to create a corridor, a level that has little offshoots this way and that way, but generally goes this direction. We're going to populate it with assets. We're going to put in this couch here, this couch there, and kind of space it out, and then populate with enemies, and then just congratulations, we have created for you a fully new game for you to play.
So you're just, I mean, so essentially, it sounds like the premise is very similar to, I mean, except for this would be obviously a shooter situation, but like how Diablo, the dungeons are new generation every time you play, right?
Yeah.
So similar kind, but I mean, this way it'd be more for the shooter.
Yeah, it'd be a little more sophisticated. I'm not saying this should be done by, because they do. I mean, there's plenty of procedurally generated games. If you think about things like Minecraft or Terraria or things like that, there's plenty of games out there that Dwarf Fortress, for example, like that creates like basically a full world. But for a first-person shooter, you could easily have it where the game itself goes, okay, so I'm going to make a, and you can put certain requirements like this type of a room has to go this far, or that needs to have these types of things in it, and you could have maybe even like some basic rooms that are just like okay, this is the basic way the room looks, and then based on whatever criteria you put, it looks somewhat different, and there's entrances and exits and things you can do. You can even have that whole thing where like, oh, you have to blow up an exit, so there's a crashed tanker truck you need to blow up, procedurally put into the room, and then basically give the player the option of basically deciding whatever they want to make. You have the basic steps of terrorists in the Afghanistan, and you're using military weapons, but also fighting fighting werewolves on the moon with magical armaments. And it goes through and just kind of finds all those things, and it's very basic applications. It creates the world for you, and just you can put it in there and set things for like I want a game that's going to last for about like 2 hours, and it'll just either create more content if you're going too fast or slow you down with enemies.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea. And I like that. So where the bot generation and enemy generation could slow you down, and it's able to think it's very dependent on like how well you're performing to actually adapt and add more bots or not.
And because Left 4 Dead does this, where it has an AI director that will throw more stuff at you if you're going too slow, or if you're doing too well, it'll throw more stuff at you, or put more or less stuff in the environment. And that's where I kind of got the idea for this at first, was like, well, if you have something that's able to actually monitor the player and see how they're playing, and then put stuff in front of them based on what they're doing, then, if you just kind of expanded that, you could do an entire first-person shooter. I mean, these things aren't these, stunning masterpieces of writing. I mean, if you've ever seen a Tom Clancy plot generator, I mean, you could basically put that in there and just have it randomly assign things.
But yeah, no, and then also while you do that, I mean, I actually was kind of thinking of it is having the mod system so that people can like that. Because mods are essentially, they go, oh, okay, it's an add-on or whatever, and it kind of takes a little bit of tinkering. But if you have that mod system where somebody creates, another set of weapons, another set of monsters, another set of things that particularly generate well, and the system is essentially equipped to accommodate that easily, then you also have more fan base, like, added things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that can complete a game, that's essentially Bethesda's business model, is we're going to release a basic thing for everyone else to put stuff into. And especially for this, where you would have, I'm almost guessing, literally drop-down menus saying, like, I want to be fighting this type of enemy, or these combinations of enemy,
Yep.
or this thing, or start off as this enemy and then switch over to this one in some sort of betrayal. And if someone actually creates, an enemy type with like models and stuff and animations, it can just be dropped in, and it would just substitute as one thing, and add in a few just references to it, and you'd be fine. I mean, if you're talking about storytelling is it's almost kind of an insult to video game writing, but it kind of deserves the insult, where it's so simple that a computer could be doing it.
Yeah.
If you like I said, when I said the Tom Clancy plot generator, I wasn't speaking, hypothetically or some sort of hyperbole. It's these things are written so poorly in most cases that you can just throw in like a random generation that takes in your input, tosses it into a blender basically, and spits out at least a comparable plot to what we get from most first-person shooters. I mean, not like, BioShock, where they spend a lot of time doing stuff, but, I think we could at least expect a level close to Call of Duty.
Yep. And, I mean, with that kind of thing, you can set, as you kind of said, size. Not only time based, but you can set size base. You can set like whether it goes up in stories or if it just goes long. I mean, you have a lot of different kind of, I would almost say, complexities that you could add to it or take away from it, depending on how much time you want to put into this random generated FPS.
Yeah, I mean, if you just basically give it like a setting, an enemy, and a type, like why have a story in there? There's no reason to thrust that on people. But yeah, I mean, if it's a randomly generated, may as well go for gusto. I mean, there may as well have those options. Options are what's going to make randomly generated a draw for people.
Yeah.
People, it's gonna the entire draw for if you make a game like this would be, you can put down any strange combination and you get basically a new game each time. Even if you put down the exact same stuff, it's randomly generated, so you're gonna get a different experience each time.
Hmm.
So it's you putting things forward, and maybe it's a very like you sit down there for a while and you go like, well, see, I want to have these things, I want this story to be put in here, and blah blah blah. So I want to have to do this, that, the other thing, and maybe even add in some extra things. Maybe we don't just go straight with corridor shooter. Maybe we have you know if we actually do get robust enough to do bigger maps, you could actually have maybe like key like. Do you want to have to hunt for keys? Do you want to have to solve puzzles? Do you want to have to do this? Do you want to have to do that? All set to no initially, but then you can go and set them to, yeah, I do want to go and find puzzles. And maybe like one of the puzzles, like the grand puzzle, is like through the entire game, you have to find these small items and then collect them all and bring them to the end.
Hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean that does allow. I mean, it does allow for almost a kind of Resident Evil style thing. I mean, you could essentially do keys, or to the very least, even doing. It's like I want this many, essentially boss types in the game. Like I don't want it to just be. Low level, grind through corridor. I want, essentially larger rooms with higher, essentially more life enemy, bosses
yeah.
that you can go through. And each one may give like a key or to open up, to go back. And at the same time, because I feel it's important and I feel Bioshock kind of screwed it, and we were slightly talking about it, is also to have a map. Because maps are nice.
Yeah,
And
maps are always nice to find. Well, but I mean, if it's I mean, honestly, the map is more or less a big glowing reticle saying "Go here."
Yeah,
yeah,
quarter. Yeah, exactly. On a quarter
Yeah.
shooting, like I mean, for example, pretty much mostly on Call of Duty, you really don't need one.
Yeah,
yeah, no, not at all.
if you ever, because I mean, they close most of the doors behind you, so it's not possible to go back for most of this.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you kind of want to take the one up over what we have right now, I mean, if you really put into it, like maybe it does not just corridors. Maybe they actually do have some branching paths that are just randomly assembled. I mean,
That would be.
you're talking about corridor shooters, but there's nothing saying that with a robust enough AI, or maybe the first version is a corridor shooter, but once they have an idea of how to do it, they can do it like actually generated maps, and then putting stuff you have to go and do inside them.
Hmm.
It's there's nothing limiting it to saying it just has to be the one way or the other. Honestly, I think the only real thing we'd have to worry about is basically any sort of story would have to be done very smartly. I have to say, I don't want to use any other really verbiage for that. Uh,
If, yeah, I think that would be the danger. I mean, the only danger. But I mean, like you said, I think like you said, like, why would you enforce having a story on somebody for this kind of a situation?
Yeah.
Because most likely I think the general the powerful draw of having something like this is that you can create a randomly generated like action adventure or of any.
yeah. There's no real. I mean, like I said, you could always just opt out of these things. And for me in particular, I think all of us here are from a part in gaming where the idea that I think the first major one for me was Star Fox, where you had characters actually talking to you that you didn't just you didn't read what they were saying. They actually told you what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That blew my mind. Like I'm used to seeing, the president has been kidnapped by ninjas. Are you a bad enough dude to get him back? Like I'm perfectly cool with like going through and just like finding small text things put in the environment that tell me what the story that has been randomly generated is.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's going to be people out there that they don't like having to read. They don't like having to imagine a story. I mean, I don't want to even insult that. I mean, that's just kind of a preference for people. I mean, some people will play a game for relaxation just because playing an awesome action game. Who cares what the plot is? Some people want a plot, and It's one of the things I've been actually wondering for a long time is but you could have a script essentially easily procedurally generated, at least to the quality that we are used to getting as gamers.
I
But
think, I think to have it to be, anything to expect anything of high caliber from that. I mean, like the script itself could be fine, but when you start having that many potential possibilities, especially if you're gonna have people voice acting them, I mean, you might have some strong performances for certain bits
well,
of them, and other ones are just
that's exactly what I wanted to hit off on is because we're so I would like to say we're spoiled by voice acting at this point, but uh, there's a lot of work being put into actually text to voice programs right now. Now, I mean, I think everyone's used to kind of what the Apple says with the completely robotic voice that you can tell it right away is a robot.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of surprised. Like, I'm pretty sure that they have had some major advancements in that place from then on. And for a lot of dialogue or things that are basically said, like I said, kind of just creating the writing style, but for a first-person shooter or video games in general, that dialogue isn't exactly Shakespeare. And all's really there is to convey the message. Like if you can just get basically, a very basic tone and a particular type of voice, you're golden. If you have a program that can read text to speech on that and just give it some very basic things created for the game, then you're going to have not just a procedurally generated game, but a procedurally generated game that in all instances will at least rival the quality of like AAA big blockbuster games. I mean, that's kind of depressing when you think about it, but I mean, think of how awesome that would be for a consumer if you got that game.
Well, I mean, because the story is going to change all the time, but I mean, the nice thing about it is you can also, you can generate some people that are essentially helpers for you too, and you could do a one-room zombie survival infestation that lasts until essentially you're dead, and you've got your guys that, yes, you could use the essential computer voices that script out like help or, come over here or, essential one-liner commands kind of things.
Yeah, help, come over here, or just the floating voice that comes at you and tells you what's going on. I've had enough of that from games before Call of Duty. Like, oh my God, this person is getting away. Go after him.
Yeah,
like that's
the Omni voice.
The Omni voice just kind of like there popping up saying like, you've got to go and do this. Do a barrel roll kind of stuff coming through.
What's horrible? When you were talking about Star Fox, all I could hear was Slippy going, "Do a barrel roll, Fox." I'm like, oh God.
That's Peppy, you uncultured swine.
Was it Peppy? I thought it was Slippy. Or isn't Slippy the
Peppy.
frog? Oh,
Definitely.
whatever.
Whoa, will you make it? No, Slippy was the frog, Peppy was the bunny, and Peppy is the one who told you to
Oh,
do a
was
barrel
he?
roll.
Oh, wow. Okay. For some reason, I always hear Slippy's voice for some reason.
The grumpy.
I am.
Rabbit.
You have just you.
I don't care.
Just look forward to it. Like the comments for this video are going to just be like,
Dude,
just
I beat it on the second
destroying
day. I played Tom for 4 days straight in versus and never played it again. That's it. I beat it the first day it came out.
That's a little sad. It was a fun game.
Well, it's Tom. All he does is burn, and nobody's gonna know who Tom is. But he just burns out games, and so that's what happened.
That's true of most of our friends. They get into a game, they're in like a crack addict who just basically fell off the wagon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, Magic the Gathering's out. Quick, I'm gonna spend $600 on this deck. Like, why aren't you doing this as well? Like, because you just spent $600 on a deck. I don't want to spend that money.
I just remember it's like that, and then Turok were games that just got horribly, horribly burned.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying about just having a text-to-voice program. A lot of that instruction and even a lot of narrative can be just kind of read to you. And having it read to you isn't so much a thing of like dramatic representation, but just I don't really want to have to read. I want to be able to listen to this while I'm shooting at that thing over there.
Yeah. So I mean, so it sounds like we're looking for just enough of a story to progress the.
Yeah, because I'm not even gonna try to say that the randomly generated story could equal like the depth and stuff of the original, like the original Bioshock in particular, like you're just never gonna hit that without a production coming forward to tell a story and to really put forward an experience and really bounce things. But I mean,
So we're just looking for a basic text, text to voice kind of narrative that
text to voice narrative stuff. Like it's
to push the action forward, not so much.
Yeah,
it's necessarily any kind of
entirely optional. Yeah,
gotcha.
Entirely optional. It's put there entirely so that, if you want to have a little bit of extra narrative to why you're blowing away, the Confederate ghosts, then congratulations, you're going to get it. But not everyone's going to need that. Most people aren't going to need that. They'll be just playing the game, and of course we're kind of we've been saying like how you can do it, but the real, I mean, honestly, the kind of insidious goal that I have for this is more or less, eliminating mediocre first-person shooters by making one that is all mediocre first-person shooters.
Yeah, but by doing that, though, you open it, as I was kind of like, now I'm going back to the mod thing again, because you'll have people that will spend the time to add in the things that the mediocre first-person shooter may never have. And so I think that's actually something that's really cool, because you'll have a lot of people to be like, I'm going to build such and such, and then you add that mod in, and now you can now you can do you can see windows, and maybe it'll generate farther out, and you can see night and day as you're going up some office thing to confront some German who sounds like, Alan Rickman.
Like, yeah, and like you said, I mean, as far as like the mediocre like shooters, I mean, yeah, there is a lot of them out there, and as far as like the one player kind of generated the action kind of scenario, I mean, to have just randomly a number of different scenarios, that could be really good. I mean, because out of the people I know who even play the games for like that good campaign for the one player, out of like the 5 people I know from work, I think I'm the only one who actually still buys games for like the one player campaign. Like for shooters, they just buy it for multiplayer anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true.
So I mean, for those who do want that, just like, I just want to go have one, as a one player, go out there and have this randomly generated scenario where I can go through without having to play the same old shit all the time.
Yeah, it's especially for people because I'm in the exact same boat. I'll buy a first person shooter for the single player campaign because I kind of enjoy occasionally just playing a first person shooter and some of those things. But why should I have to buy a $60 game every time they come out with some new, like, just slightly varied plot with nothing different? If I'm going to do that, why not I just buy the one game that actually will basically make all those plots? Like, I could just run the exact same thing in there again, get slightly different outcomes, and it only cost me the $60 the one time.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it would inspire even the mediocre kind of shooters, like, we're like, oh, the single player doesn't matter because it's all about multiplayer. At least if they're going to be doing a single player, maybe like at least try to do better than the randomly generated one. At least raise the bar somewhat. Or if not that, I'm thinking that if if they're really that desperate, they could just start like saying like, okay, well, if you want the single player, just go play that.
Exactly.
Yeah, play that with these settings, and you're going to get what the story is.
Well, and the cool thing would be is for something that's like this, is you also could do multiplayer. So you have three other people, you generate, this corridor one, and now you can all talk to each other on whether it be a VoIP inside the game or, on Skype, like how we're doing right now to do this thing. But, like, you can essentially coordinate and get, like, maybe the goal is to get to the middle, and then there's the boss that's there. So you have, like, that, or you can do the standard, smaller generated map, and, it's deathmatch, or, So, you have other
Joey,
options.
I just want you to realize that what you suggest, like, you could actually have randomly generated maps, and especially if you have multiplayer in mind, you could have maps that actually have, like, depending on how many players it's for, actually have separate routes that they each have to take.
Yeah,
and then
exactly
communicate back and
too.
forth, like, oh, well, if you use this monitor or use this computer on this path, it opens up the secret cache on this path. or to get further in this one, someone else on another path has to do something.
Yep.
And basically have that's stuff that you see. In fact, no, you don't actually see that. The last time I saw that was in Portal 2. Portal 2, yeah, the go out for that, where you might actually involve two people doing something.
Yep.
And once again, like it's randomly generated, so you would have a game where, huzzah, we have this thing, and we're going to have it basically an infinite number of times.
Exactly. And it allows you to essentially have, and people can essentially, as again in mods, create their own versions of things that like their own version of deathmatch or whatever. So you just have this game that has all these possibilities to it.
If you really want to get technical, if you get someone who just kind of wants to tell their own story with it, I mean, it's procedurally generated, but there's no reason why that procedure can't be just set by a human down to the level. Like, just have mods that aren't even. I mean, you add in your own resources. Maybe you have a set of people doing voice acting, a very particular plot rather than just one just generated randomly, and you have the game, or you in the game set up with the tools your own basically first person shooter, and then just release it as a mod for the game, like run this scenario, like the custom maps in Warcraft 3, like just bam,
Yeah.
Or even like even more recent example would be like the new Shadowrun Returns. When you get that one, they actually give you the tool set for the game to create your own scenarios, and that's actually they encourage it. That's what they want, is for you to create your own scenario and then release it to the public. So I mean, this idea definitely has that potential. Like, if you could get all of those different tools and different different villains, different scenarios, different setting backdrops, then and if you give the players all those tool sets, then they then could build essentially levels to then release to public, to everybody can play. Like, oh, try my setting that I created. I have my friends voice acted it pretty well, and here it is. Yeah. I mean, that gives that gives it as a solid possibility. And if for nothing else, as a game that gives those tools for player generated content for stories and games and shooting scenarios, I think that alone is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I mean, they do another things. I think Neverwinter Nights did. There's actually a lot of games that do. You can make your own scenarios and stuff in it, and a lot of times those scenarios are like actually better than a lot of games that I've played, or at least the stories. I remember City of Heroes, like the first MMO that did that. There was some really crazy player-made stuff in the player-made area. So, I mean, you could actually have that where it could be kind of labor of love, but you can kind of release these noticeable things, get kind of attention, and kind of see more and more stuff come out depending on who wants to put the effort in.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing about it is, like, you can, well, most people would just listen to their own music, but you could also just assign a playlist inside the game and just listen to your own music versus having to listen to maybe the 16-bit or 8-bit freaking music that would normally play in something that cheesy.
That's true. Of course, one of the things, I mean, I would actually love to see this in a game that would actually do this, is someone actually, like, when a new, basically kind of like a reason, like, you have to be better, because if you make a mediocre shooter that's not better than this, someone's just going to get your game, copy down what's happening in it, put it in this one, and then put it out for free.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, oh, well, blah, 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 copyright and stuff like that. But, if your game is that poorly done, just as far as, like, experience-wise, that it can be put into the random generator with just some X and Y values set a certain way, and the same thing comes out more or less, you have done poorly as a game designer.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't. I mean, in certain ways, I don't even think if you had all those tool sets out there, I don't think they really could do anything about it. So if it's out there and they said, oh, you stole our idea, it's just, you're not
release it as Call of Duty, like DOODY, is like some like little joke.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be. But at the same time, you're not doing it. If you're releasing it just as the community, it's not for profit. So I mean, it's essentially like a fan fiction. It's not. You're not.
Yeah, you change one small issue. Imagine like some game out there that has like really stupid bullshit twist or ending or something like that. You just take that out and put the exact same thing as far as levels and stuff in. And then obviously, because I mean, it wouldn't be the same thing. It wouldn't be the same assets and stuff like that. It'd be randomly generated stuff. So it probably wouldn't match the quality exactly, but you could probably have pretty, yeah, I mean, really close to what was going on in there, especially with what's going on today as design, quote unquote.
Yeah, and the person that builds it essentially will always have something to do. They can always do a DLC of, essentially just adding more, like either that something that ups the graphic generator or allows for, a bigger area, like to do kind of like
More, yeah,
fields or things like
yeah,
that.
more assets or more options that can be put in there. Like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, it could start off as just a game that has procedurally generated via corridors, but then you're like, okay, well, we've tweaked the engine a bit, and we can sell this DLC where it adds like not just corridors but also open areas,
Exactly.
like courtyard stuff that have multiple things. Uh, Alter it so that it can have secret, corners, stuff like that, and just slowly add in more stuff. And not just there, but you could also do stuff like, imagine doing a weapon pack. Every time someone comes up with like a unique weapon pack, you can kind of, if it's not released just by someone doing it, you could do a DLC where it's just like, okay, check it out. Here's the weapon pack of Dr. Seuss weapons.
Yeah, or essentially a knockoff plasmid. Like if you really wanted to, the plasmid kind of thing. Um,
you know, or just magic spells, superpowers, things like that, and like as many as included in the original as possible. But I mean, eventually, just like okay, we're gonna put in these extra things, and then maybe someone has someone fan makes superpowers as a weapon type you can use, and then eventually the company is just like, oh well, we like to do superpowers too, and they make it. And they both do it different ways, so the person could have like basically two different ways of doing the exact same thing.
yep.
Two different. I mean, even because I'm guarantee you, it's like the gun nuts out there would see that and be like, I'm going to rewrite the way the guns function so that they're more accurate, quote unquote, so that their favorite guns are more powerful, basically. And you could have that. You have packs downloaded from people that do certain things, and then a little more professional pack, hopefully more professional packs from the company itself.
Yep.
Or extra weapons, enemy types, or different models to be putting in, or higher resolution models to be putting in. It's a lot of stuff you can do.
And if there's anyone who played original Half-Life mods, and I don't know if you guys did or not, I played Half-Life, but there was one. It was called Action. It was called the Action mod, and what it would do is if your character got shot in the arm, you could not use that arm. So if you could use two weapons, you got shot in the arm, you can only use one weapon. You get shot in the leg, you bleed, and then you limp. I thought that was an amazing idea, and I would actually have liked to see. And some people say, "Oh, well, that's a little too close to real
Reality?
life and reality." But I thought it was one of the most amazing ideas because normally it's just shot, 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 and the guy just like runs away with like one life and just like bolts through, jumps out a window, lands on the ground, keeps running, and you finally finish him off with a rocket. But I thought that was the coolest idea, and I would actually have really liked to have seen that in something like kind of like hardcore mode for Diablo, where it was like you die, that character's gone.
Yeah, I'm sick. I agree with you on that one. I'm kind of sick and tired of like every shooter, like you're just like an action superhero who can just like take a billion hits to the chest and walk away. As long as you have one pixel of life left, you can, or one little bit of life left, you can get away, and then your guy regenerates and comes back. And
Lame it out. Lame it out.
It's like, come on now, what? Like no, like I don't know. Even some of the games that used to kind of do that, like the original Ghost Recons and things like that, they had that where, it was a little more realistic. When you got hit, you were hit, and it didn't go away. And if you get hit, if you got hit in the head, you're done. One shot, you're done.
Yep.
Whereas like the newer ones now, it's more along the lines of all the other shooters. It's more just a straight action shooter. You're just you take hits and it's whatever.
Well, that's kind of one of the brilliant parts of a procedurally generated game too, is you can have not just that setting where it's just, like you can have a realism slider in a game like this, where you have like the super realistic, like if you get shot in the leg, you basically, the way you continue in the game is find safety, survive long enough for someone to come and save you, and then someone else shows up and takes over. It's like a different character. Or you can go to the other end of the scale where you're basically Duke Nukem on our Rage Bender, like walking out with like dual wielding miniguns and like firing off as you're just like being hit by explosions after explosion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know?
I mean, the thing for that one was instead of health pack, you got things that bandaged you. So you were never as fast as you were before, but but you stopped the bleeding. So and your life could only go to that high point again. So it's like you took fall damage, but you could go back up, but you would never be at full life again. I thought that was just a cool idea, and it
Well,
was one of
it
those things.
is.
It's like you could
You
just
have to
click
fight.
on and click off kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like hardcore mode, super realism mode for all those people out there who want to prove they're so much more badass by playing Dark Souls, basically, and claiming how easy it was. Like, oh yeah, it was super easy. Like, I didn't even die my first time through. But
But
there's also you could have that where people will do it that way, and maybe they do it that way, but on easy mode. Maybe some people do like the Duke Nukem mode, but on hard mode. Like that's kind of the point. Like there's a lot of different options, but the basic game experience changes to suit you rather than basically having to pay $60 hoping that it delivers what you want.
exactly.
Sounds good.
I think that's all we really have to talk about this topic. We've covered a lot of stuff. We covered basically the basic principles of it, some of the basic stuff you could do with it, one way or the other, different options and things you can do with it. Though I'm sure that obviously there's a bunch of stuff that people watching this or listening to this have already thought of. I'm sure we'll be seeing those in the comments, and then immediately not talking about them because we probably won't revisit the subject.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe in a later set we might
I hope
revisit.
to do just reviews talking about what other people have done because I mean that's what this series is about. A bunch of gamers coming over and talking about their ideas regarding a game and why hasn't this been done. So not having that be part of it is not having the community of people coming over and tell us what it is. It's kind of hypocritical.
Yeah,
And also by encouraging them to make ideas about the game and what we're doing, we're stopping them from basically calling us the homo or various other things that various YouTube commenters say all the time.
It's gonna happen.
yeah, it's gonna
Well, it's
happen.
something that's gonna happen. I mean, I've already gone on there and made that comment just to spite myself because I'm
Yeah, I mean, and at this point we've only got probably one Indian gamer that's still watching us, and
Yeah, that was from the previous episode.
from the previous episode.
Adam is not aware of that.
But I'm sure that guy is writing furiously right now. I'm not even
no.
watching you guys anymore.
Yeah, well, there's one that doesn't, one that doesn't. Like we split it down the middle for that one very specific group of people.
Yeah, for that one bad cow joke. All right.
I hope they come back to criticize over and over again because a view is a view is a view.
Exactly. All right.
We'll just start actively insulting people, and then most importantly, we'll talk about something nerdy and they get something super wrong,
Yeah.
or not even no, it won't be something super wrong. It'll just be some small detail that obviously we know about. Like we're gonna get wrong. Oh, we're gonna the peppy thing. We're gonna do that peppy thing in like every episode. We're gonna talk about like some small like little detail that we're just by chance remembering wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'll get
Slippy.
thousands of views just like, oh, look at these idiots. Like, oh, well, you're the idiot. You watched it.
Oh. All right. So
Probably shouldn't call people watching the show idiots.
they're very,
Or I should.
very,
Go ahead.
very smart
Go
people
ahead.
who hate
Post a
you.
comment.
Very smart people that hate you, but really, really like me and Adam.
We still
But
love
not
you.
you, Mcleod.
I'm used
Well,
to
to
not
all of
being-
our listeners who haven't stopped, we still love you guys.
Yeah, we still appreciate you. Don't listen to
I'm
the bad man.
I'm mostly ambivalent.
All right.
I tolerate your presence because I've got nothing else to do.
Oh, that's pretty much all of us, though. We all tolerate each other until we have something better to do. All right. And on that note, we will, again, as we usually say, there's description stuff probably down, maybe some links to stuff that we thought were cool that may relate to what we're doing right now.
Probably not.
Probably not, but maybe. You never know. So, as usual, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of this if you're binge watching.